Welcome to This Week in Indian Hill Braves Athletics here on IndianHillBraves.org and ESP Media powered by Sidearm Sports. My name is Jason Griefer. Once again, we're joined by Indian Hill Athletic Director Brian Phelps. Brian, good to talk to you once again. Obviously, a lot of spring sports to discuss here today, and we'll get to that here in just a moment. But also an important kind of time as well in the high school year for student athletes to declare where they're going to potentially play athletics at the next level. And I understand some of your Braves athletes have been able to do that recently.
Yeah, this year we have found a way to celebrate three different times throughout the year the kids that are committing at the next level. And the first round, we had a nice couple Division I athletes in the fall, and then right around spring break, we had another signing of 9 kids. And right now we have 3 more that will have a signing day for them next week. And that totals 14. I expect to have a couple more kids. And I think it's just in such a crazy year. This is a fun way to highlight the commitment to what they've really, for most of these kids started doing when they're 4 or 5 or 6 years old. So really proud of our student athletes and excited to celebrate them any way we can.
And even given the times we're in, it makes it all the more special. We can honor these kids and deservedly so for all their accomplishments and thus being able to move on to the collegiate level. So we'll be keeping track of that here over the next week or so. Let's get into talking about some of your sports teams that are going on right now. Let's start with the baseball team. They've really started to put it together and find their stride. Won 4 straight in the league, 4 or 5 overall to get to 5-1 in the league and sit just 1 game back of Wyoming. Big 2-game set coming up this week against Taylor. And we've talked about on the show how Taylor has kind of been the dominant team in the league the last few years. They've won it the last 3 years outright, and 4 years ago shared the title. But nevertheless, right now with everybody, all these teams so bunched up at the top of the standings, your team included, as we said, Wyoming and Taylor, obviously a big 2-game set right here. Are the coaches or players feeling any kind of extra sense of maybe anxiousness, pressure, excitement to play this series? And also, do they feel like it's important in this series to get at least 1 against Taylor to remain in the hunt for the league title?
Taylor continues to be the kind of the top team in baseball in the league, and that's the way we're going to treat it. Get a couple of nice wins over Reading and Marymount was a great way to have a 4-game winning streak in the CHL, and we know Taylor will be tough, but we're playing really good baseball right now. We talked about a little bit of Jekyll and Hyde last week, and they've turned it on. We've seen some pretty good pitching, had timely hitting. We've had good pitching. It's really a fun team to watch, and we know we've put ourselves in a position to we can take care of business with a Taylor and a Wyoming, and Madeira still on the schedule, and Finneytown as well, that we're going to give our chance to be right at the top of the CHL. So we were supposed to play Taylor at home on Wednesday. That game has been moved to Thursday with the snowstorm coming into Cincinnati. We figured instead of trying to play in 38 degrees, we'll play in 60 degrees, which in one day it'll be. So anyway, yeah, we're excited to play Taylor. Good baseball team. Every year they're tough. And I don't think there's added pressure. I think it's, hey, we're in a good spot. Let's just keep playing baseball.
In a really good league. So even if things don't necessarily go your way, we hope it is, still a lot of ground to be made up. And the way this league is shaping up, it seems like anybody can beat anybody on a given day. That's how competitive this league is right now. Let's switch gears. Let's stay on the diamond, but let's move over to the softball team. And last week we kind of discussed the wild one against Marymount that wound up being 21-20 in favor of Marymount. And we thought, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And then all of a sudden they meet again, and you could just throw out every record book, forget every scorebook you've ever seen in your life. This one winds up, again, your team comes up short, but it winds up a final of 35-33. Before we get into the grand scheme of things, as far as the overall stretch they're in right now, take us back to that game. And after a wild one the first time out, I don't know how we could imagine it getting any more crazier, and it did.
I've never seen anything like it. And, it was actually a lot of fun. And, you want to be on the winning side of that. But in both games, our boys are playing right next to the softball field, and they finish and they come over and watch and cheer. And we were up big, and then we were down big. And then, the game went to the bottom of the 7th. and we were down, I think, 8 runs, and cut it to 2 with bases loaded and a hard hit to end the game. And just like that, it was it could have gone either way. But I mentioned before, our coaches, our kids, they're having a lot of fun. I think they are finding their own successes in ways that they haven't in the past. And every time my coach sends a note out to the team, it's so positive, and it's neat to be around the kids. I mean, they're making progress. They're having fun. They're getting better, and there's some games that we're going to be able to be competitive in coming up.
Just touching on that, I was wondering kind of how the spirits are amongst the team. We talk about those 2 games against Marymount, and then you get shut out twice against Reading, and now Taylor comes up, and they've been rolling through the league thus far. They've allowed 4 runs in league play thus far. Are they still able to keep a positive mindset about things, even though they continue to go in against this meat grinder of a schedule, if you will?
Yeah, they have, and you're right. They have 4 really tough games, and all the credit to Reading. They had a great team. Coach did a great job. A really top pitcher who's only a sophomore, and that game could have been more out of hand than it was. It was a very respectable score, and that's credit to our kids fighting, but also credit to Reading and their coach for just being great sports and kind of keeping it under control. And yeah, we know that Taylor's going to be really good. We just kind of need to get through these 4 games, and then spirits will stay high. But those are 2 really good softball programs. It's going to be really tough for us to compete with them.
Let's switch gears. Let's move on to the lacrosse field, and let's start with the girls first. A split of the 2 games played this past weekend, easily beating Kings 17-5. So a really nice performance there. But 2 days before that, a very, very tight one. It winds up in a 12-11 loss to Marymount. And we talked last week about the role Marymount's been on and how they've just been playing so well. In fact, they've lost 2 games by 3 combined goals, so they could easily be undefeated right now. So given that, and knowing how we knew how tough it was going to be going into that one, are they actually, how encouraged were they coming out of that game, knowing that, we lost, but we also hung in with a team that has a really good shot to make a long postseason run? I'd have to think they were actually pretty encouraged coming out of it.
Confidence was really high. And I think it was as good as you can feel not winning is kind of what that game was. And we went up early, and then 2-0, I think, or so, we got off to a fast start, but then we were down 6-3 kind of pretty quickly. Actually, I think there were 17 or 18 minutes still in the first half. And at that point, that's kind of when you know what type of team you have. You're playing a rival, a really good lacrosse program. You had been in the lead, and just like that, you're down 6-3. And we came right back. It was back and forth all game. As you said, the game ended 12-11. And I think, if I remember right, with 5 minutes left, it was 12-11. So we had some really good chances to score. They had some chances to score. Defense was really good. Really could have gone either way. Again, Marymount's a really good girls lacrosse program. We know that as they are in a lot of things. And we were right there. I think that proved to our coaches and our kids that we're just that close, and we're playing really good lacrosse, and we have some big games coming up. So just keep playing our game and see what happens.
Road trip to Springboro this week, followed by a senior day against Wyoming coming up a little bit later on in the week. So that'll be cool to get those seniors there honored here in their final go around at this level. Let's move on to the boys, and they just keep the roll going. You get 3 nice road wins over Sycamore and Turpin and Severn Hills. You got a road trip to Bishop Watterson coming up here soon. We've talked the last couple of weeks about Charlie DeGennaro, and he's still doing what he does. He leads the league in goals and assists, but I want to focus on some of the other guys that are helping him in instances taking the scoring load off of him. Will Adair is 3rd in the league in goals, 5th in assists. Brendan West is 5th in goals, and your goalie Robert Brunner is 3rd in the league in saves. And we just saw on social media he actually just announced a commitment to Ohio Northern University. So congrats to him on that. So you're getting balance not only offensively with the guys not named Charlie DeGeneres, but you're also getting good defensive play and in net with Robert Brunner. How happy are the coaches right now with the overall production from the guys not named Charlie DeGeneres?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in a pretty good spot lacrosse wise for sure. We're playing at a high level. Our coaches, like any coach, will always nitpick about how we need to get better and not settle. And our next game is a really big game coming up in Columbus with Bishop Watterson, and they're one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the state. And yeah, that is what's been so much fun. Everyone knows Charlie DeGeneres. He's a top player, but the Adair brothers, Nick's a senior, Will's a junior. You mentioned Will. I think on defense and LSMs, like a Cooper Weiler and the Divine brothers, and you talked about Robert Brunner just really playing a great goal, playing great in the goal, and we're kind of clicking on all cylinders right now. But we know, that's 7 games into the season. I think we're 6-1 or 5-1 or something like that. And there's a lot of season left. We have to stay healthy and we have to keep getting better. And this team's a lot of fun to watch. They're good. They're good. They're strong. And, like I said, coach has some things that he wants them to work on to do better. And we'll see if that happens.
Putting a lot of goals into the net and playing very, very well defensively. It's going to win you a lot of games going forward. And right now, as you said, clicking on all cylinders on both sides of the ball. Let's switch gears and let's go on to the tennis courts here and get a nice league win over Marymount to improve to 2-0 in league play after sweeps last week against some Madeira and Marymount. You're also taking on teams like Beaver Creek, Mason, CCD, and taking care of business in those particular games. And we talked on the show before about this non-conference schedule and the challenge it was going to be, particularly for the 4 freshmen you have on the varsity squad. Coming out of this week, where you, like you said, you get the win over Marymount, you play well against St. X, you play well against Mason, you play well against Beaver Creek. How big of a week was this past week for the development of those freshmen and giving them the confidence to know now we're in the grind of a season? And even though I'm a freshman, I can play with some really, really good, potentially state title contending teams.
Every match they play, every win that they get, it just has to continue to build their confidence. And, we've said it each week. This team's really good. They just really have some really talented players. And I think we match up well with most teams and feel like we can play with anyone in the state, Division I or Division II. And that's a really good place to be in, and knowing that we should only continue to get better, honestly. And that's better this year. That's better in the future. I mean, you always have some seniors that just are the staples and the anchors to your team. And, once this season gets over, those will be big holes to fill. But we look at our JV program and our 8th grade program, and just it's hard to not really be excited and just smile knowing that we're just going to continue to be a pretty dominant team, and hope that we're talking about state championships at the end. But a lot of tennis to play. We talked about it last week. We need to win the league first. We're in a good position to do that, yeah. And just keep getting better at every match that we play.
Look to continue that league run on Thursday against Finneytown, and Thursday starts a stretch where you're playing 6 matches in a span of really 6-7 days. The only day off between the 22nd and the 28th your team has is this coming Sunday. How are they preparing to just go one day after the next here before they enter into the month of May?
Well, I know our coach, Wade Ward, likes to schedule that way, and he feels like they need to get used to that back-to-back days for the tournament, whether it's the OHSAA tournament or the OTCA tournament, and that prepares our kids the best to play, multiple matches in a short period of time. So the schedule is designed like that on purpose. And, sometimes you have to learn to play really good tennis when you're not at your best, whether that's physically, emotionally, just kind of burned out from a really tough week. Like, how do you respond when you're in that position? So that's part of the test, and that's part of us trying to get better and be prepared for the tournament.
Moving on to track and field, and after hosting the Indian Hill Relay Invitational, you finished tied. You finished tied for fourth there on both sides, but good strong showings, particularly in the girls 1600 run and in the relays there. So not bad showings. You got some things positive to take away from that, of course. On top of being able to successfully host the event, which is another good thing for you and your administration. But now looking forward here, you've got a 2-meet week coming up with a trip to Finneytown and then also a trip up to Sycamore for the Golden Baton Relays this week. The CHL championships are just a few weeks away. I think about 2.5, 3 weeks out. How close are we to the coaches wanting and pushing the runners and field athletes to be at their peak? Are we at that point yet, or are they still just trying to knock down their times and increase their distances?
I think we're getting close, but we're not quite there yet. It's still about playing with some lineups, some relays, kind of getting the experience under some of our legs and just competing against other schools. But it's going to be real close where we start gearing up, knowing that the end of the season is nearing, the CHL championships, the OHSA championships. So I don't think we're quite there yet. Every meet invitational relay you want to build upon and from the last one, but hopefully we're still on that climb upward and we haven't peaked, but yeah, our coaching staff's doing a really good job making sure our kids are getting some really good competition. Back to our Indian Hill relays, a 4th place finish for boys and girls was actually pretty strong. We had some bigger schools here and some schools that we knew would push our kids to see a higher level, in most of the events. So that was great. I don't think we could have asked for anything more the way that worked out. But yeah, we get back, we go to Finneytown, then head to Sycamore. So we're on the climb up, but I don't think we've peaked quite yet.
Looking back on the invitational that you hosted last week there, setting aside for a moment, and we just discussed it actually, the results there, how the teams, how the individuals performed right there. How was it for you to oversee and actually able to pull this off? As you said, a lot of schools coming in, a lot of bigger schools coming in as well. How did you think the event ran from an execution standpoint, logistically?
To be honest, besides not having some first place medals that we couldn't find and we had to back order, which is always a little oops kind of thing, the day could not have been better. Weather was perfect. Crowd control was perfect. With our online ticketing service, we know exactly how many people are in the stadium and can control that. Every school did a really good job staying in their space that was designated for them. Our coaching staff did a great job making sure we had plenty of volunteers. And it was, and I say this knowing I had very little to do with it, like none almost. It was as well run of a relay invitational that we could have, it wasn't a long meet. We got out, I think a lot of people judge how good a invitational is by what time you get home that night, and mm-hmm. meaning, it didn't take forever, well run, next event. So I could not have been happier of how kind of the logistics of our relay invitational went. Great job, and all credit goes to our head coach, Sue Savage.
What kind of a showcase can that be for Indian Hill High School when you have an event like this where so many teams are coming in and yet you're able to execute it, as you said, outside of one little thing here or there? Couldn't have gone much better. The crowds were great, understanding the protocols. The teams and the athletes were great, understanding protocols. How big of a boost can that be for Indian Hill High School in the future to maybe say, if some postseason events potentially come up to be able to be hosted there, and your school may be able to be considered for that?
Yeah, well, where we're really lucky is we have absolutely outstanding facilities and, plenty of parking. That kind of stuff doesn't inhibit us from hosting large events. But probably most importantly, we have faculty and staff and kids that are willing to chip in, volunteer, and help. And, you don't run any type of, whether it's the concession stands or raking the long jump pit or whatever, you can't pull off any big event like this without people willing to step in and just volunteer their time. So we're really lucky in all those phases, whether it's parking, facilities, but number one is the people that are willing to jump in and make the event happen. So, yeah, I think we can host just about any event that we would be asked to host in any sport. We have the facilities, the resources, and the manpower to do it. So I'm excited to do that kind of stuff.
And now have shown the ability to do it on top of all the logistical resources that you have. That's certainly a good way to showcase the area and the support that you have there, Brian. A lot of great stuff once again, and hopefully next week maybe another couple of kids committing to colleges. We can brag on that, and a lot more things going on around. A lot of positive momentum there, and we certainly appreciate your time joining us to talk about it.
If I can just add one thing,
Sure.
Our girls competition cheerleading team leaves this Friday morning at 6 a.m. They'll head down to Disney for the national competition. So they'll spend the weekend there, and they've had such a great year, whether it's being on the sideline at a football or basketball game or doing their actual cheer competitions.
Yeah.
It's a really fun group to watch, led by former Bing gal, Kristen Brewer. She does such a great job with our kids. And I know the families are really pumped to get down to Disney for this competition. And apparently the prize are some ugly white plastic jackets that every kid wants to own when they leave Disney. So hopefully our kids are coming back to school on Tuesday with some really ugly plastic white jackets.